Hi, everybody. I just wanted to give you guys a quick little conversation here about Ramadan. I do this every year in class because I feel like it's one of those things that most of us know something about, and maybe even know some people who are Muslim who actually do Ramadan. But it's one of those things that especially, when we get into our sort of American or even Christian bubble, we don't always recognize the other practices around and how there's some parallels between those things and the things that we're more familiar with. So this is just a way to sort of do that, and I feel like it's a good thing to talk about on a day when we're talking about social inclusion. So Ramadan is the month. It's the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, and this year it is April 23rd to May 23rd. It's already happened. The month it's on a different calendar than, say, the calendar we're more familiar with, and so the month kind of moves in time. It kind of moves back a little bit. So next year it's going to be a little bit earlier in the year, a little bit earlier in the year, et cetera, or our year, I should say. Ramadan it comes from this part of the Quran. So let's do a little Quran devotional today. So Surah 97. So think of a surah like almost like a book of the Bible. So Surah 97, and it's only this long. This is the entire Surah 97 right here. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful, we revealed the Quran on the night of Qadr. Would that you knew what the night of Qadr is like. Better is the night of Qadr than 1,000 months. On that night, the angels and the Spirit, by their Lord's leave, can't come down with his decrees. That night is peace till break of day. All right, so just based on this, what is Ramadan all about? Or the night of Qadr, what's it all about? Like, why do we celebrate? So, for example, if I ask you, how can we celebrate Christmas? We get what Christmas is, blah, 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 but what is the reason for Christmas? So what is the reason for Ramadan or the night of Qadr? Right, it's really about this revealing of the Quran. And this is a really important difference between Islam and, say, Christianity, or at least the way we talk about Christianity today. In Christianity, God sent Jesus, and Jesus was, if you read your John, Jesus was the Word, and the Word was with God. This is sort of God speaking to human beings was essentially sending Jesus. I know we have the Bible, and that's great and all, but essentially Jesus was the Word. He was coming down here speaking for God. That's a very important thing in any religious thing, is how does the God speak to the humans? What's the connection there? In other words, how do I know that what you're saying is God and not just some dude? And for us, it's Jesus Christ. For Islam, I should say for Christians, it's Jesus Christ. For Islam, the answer is the Quran. This is the Word of God. And God is not really going, or I should say Allah is not really going to talk to you anymore. That's it. You got the Quran, you're good to go. There's such a gap between human beings and Allah. Allah is so much more powerful and omnipotent than human beings that there can't be a lot of connection there. We like to think, I have a personal relationship with Jesus. He lives in my heart, blah, blah, blah. That is not the sort of, Jesus is so all-powerful that I can't really connect with him at all. This is sort of I can hang out with Jesus. That's not what you're getting in Islam. You're not getting, I can hang out with Allah. So what is it? It is the blessed month. This is when the Quran was revealed, as we just talked about. Who was it revealed to? Revealed to Muhammad sometime around 610 AD. Who revealed it? Now remember, Allah is way too powerful. If Allah would have shown up to Muhammad, Muhammad would have blown up. It was just too powerful. So it's through an angel, or what Islam calls Malik, and that's the angel Gabriel. Same angel Gabriel from the Bible. There's a lot of overlap in beliefs on this, because both Islam and Christianity really are evolved from Judaism. So the night of power that was mentioned in the surah is the Laylat al-Qadr. And again, that's that. And what you essentially do is you stay up all night praying in the mosque. So if there's going to be an analogy here between Christianity, something you might be more familiar with, the analogy might be, so let's think about Easter, okay? Easter is like the big moment, right, where Jesus raises from the dead. But if we go back, before Easter, there's this whole thing called Lent. It's almost a month long. And at the start of Lent, there's this thing called Ash Wednesday, where you essentially, if you were Catholic, you would go to church and you would sort of remember what's going on there. That is sort of the night of power here. It's that beginning point of this month. Now, think about what you do during Lent, and then we can think about what you do during Ramadan. So what happens during it? What do you do during Lent? That's maybe the question to ask. Like, obviously, one of the easy answers would be, people give up things, like they give up chocolate for Lent or something like that. And honestly, that's not exactly what Lent's all about, but that's not a horrible thing. It's about the intent of the whole thing, and that's going to be the same for Ramadan as well. It's not that giving up chocolate and therefore getting thin is somehow like super religious or pious. The idea here being that you give up something in Lent, you give up something that your body sort of craves, and every time you want that chocolate, for example, you are reminded that you're supposed to turn your mind towards God rather than towards the more bodily things. So that's the same thing we have here as well, is that essentially you're doing some things throughout Ramadan, just like you're doing some things throughout Lent. And the purpose of doing these things is not just to do them, but to focus your mind back upon, in Christianity's case, on Christ, in Islam's case, back on Allah. So it's going to be prayer, devotion, reading the Quran. Again, nothing that we would find too crazy, right? Prayer, devotion, reading the Bible. Another element of it is Sawm, or what we call fasting. And again, this is the parallel with essentially giving something up for Lent. This is the fourth pillar of Islam. I don't know that I can remember the 5 pillars of Islam. You might want to look that up, what the 5 pillars of Islam are. I won't even try right now. I'm not even going to embarrass myself. But this is the fourth pillar of Islam. Fasting must be preceded by niyah, or intention. The same thing, by the way, is true for Christians in Lent. It's just that we don't always think of it that way, especially Protestants. Protestants sort of move past this and just say, Lent, Schment, bring on Easter. That's what we're all about. And what you do during this time is you abstain from food, drink, smoking, sex, all those things during daylight. Now, when the sun goes down, go for it. But while the sun is up, you abstain from all those things. And again, it's not that you're just doing this to get thin, or you're not just doing it to suffer. You're doing it so that every time you want food, drink, smoking, or sex, rather than doing that, you turn your mind to Allah. So the final meal at daybreak, so like sort of before your breakfast, you're breaking the fast, essentially is sahur. And then at night you have the futur. Now, what else do you do during it? So think again what we do during Lent. So you've got Lent going on for about a month, and then the week before Easter you have what's called Holy Week. And again, if you're Catholic, that means something different usually than if you're Protestant. Protestants, we're like, hey, we'll do whatever we want. Catholics are very sort of, here are the sort of the rituals and the things that we'll do. And definitely for Holy Week, what you'll do, and some Protestant churches will do this as well, but you will have more time in the church. Like you will go back for Palm Sunday, and you will go for, there's other names for those things, for those days during that week. There's obviously Maundy, Thursday, and there's Good Friday, and there's sort of church all along the way. For Ramadan, it's the same thing. As you get closer to it, to the end of Ramadan, the more pious, not everyone's going to do this, but the more pious are going to do a retreat in the mosque, where you essentially move into the mosque. I don't know if women do this. I know that men do this, but I don't know that women do this. That's probably changed over the years as well. This is the last 10 days of Ramadan, and this is again, if you're busy, you got other things going on, that's great. you can kind of go to church or the mosque and then come back. But if, sort of the hardcore, you move into the mosque and you sort of make that your full-time gig. And so a lot of people sort of move into the mosque and they will sort of do this retreat in there. Now, retreat, don't think, again, like a Protestant retreat where it's like, you sit around and eat s'mores and, play games and things like that. Like, this is very much a spiritual retreat. At the end of this, you have what's called the Eid al-Fitr. Eid, this word here, means feast. And you'll see this at other times. You're going to see this when we talk about the Hajj a little bit later on. The Hajj, that sort of period of time also ends in an Eid. It's a different Eid. But this is the feast of the breaking of the fast, when it's over. Essentially, you can make the comparison here with Easter dinner or Easter lunch or whatever, or the morning sunrise service that you might go to in a Christian church. And this ends Ramadan. The main thing I want to point out here, besides just sort of giving us other view of this other religion, is I also want to point out just a lot of the parallels between what happens in the Christian religion in terms of rituals and beliefs and things that are done, and in Islam and other ones. Like, there's a lot of parallels here, because even though they may be different religions, they all have the same, I guess you could say, audience, and that audience are human beings. And human beings have very similar psychology. So if it works in one religion, it's probably going to be something that works in other religions as well. Like, there are things about human beings that create a lot of parallels between religions. Even though they may have different beliefs, there's a lot more overlap in these things than there are differences in a lot of cases. All right, so you're going to watch another couple videos here. You're going to look at a little bit more at Ramadan, how coronavirus is affecting that. And then you're also going to look at the Hajj and what the Hajj is and how coronavirus is helping that. That's it. Thanks, guys. See ya.